Hey and welcome back to my little piece of paradise here on the beautiful Swedish countryside. Today I'm going to do something a little bit more challenging because I have some grains left from when I planted my barley field. So I'm going to make some malt, or trying to make some malt. I know in theory how to make malt, but of course I have never done it before. So I visited Warbro Kvarn, which is a micro malt house here in the neighborhood. And they were really nice and helpful. They showed me around and they told me exactly what their procedure is. So I'm going to follow the exact same steps and cross my fingers. But first let me show you my little barley field and my hops. Et voila, my barley field. I think it's looking quite okay. There are some empty spots. You can see where I didn't mix the compost well enough. That's where it popped up a little bit more. There are a few weeds, not too bad. I have some wild hops that are growing really well. So far so good. The hops are looking quite okay as well. The leaves are not that big, but to be honest, I don't know what I should expect. I had some caterpillars eating my hops, so some have some holes in the leaves. Especially the pearl has gotten, well, I don't know, over 3 meters right now. So I'm quite happy. I'm probably going to give it some chicken poop. I might even get some hops from these ones, so that's really nice. The Willamette and the Rakau, yeah, they really stay behind. I have no idea. And for the ones who are wondering, why do we have to process this barley to make our beer? Why do we have to turn this barley into a malt? What is malt? Well, the thing is, our yeast that is going to make the alcohol for us can only convert the really simple sugars like the mono and disaccharylase. And our barley is full with starches, so we need to find a way to chop down those starches. And luckily the barley that has our starches has the starches for a reason, because it needs it to grow its little plant. And when it starts to grow, when it starts to sprout, it's going to create enzymes to break down those sugars, because also the barley itself wants to have simpler sugars. So we take our seed, give it some water, we let it sprout, then we dry it, and that's what we call malt. So let's go to Warbro Kvarn. Oh yeah, and I was planning to post the video sooner, but I got a little bit distracted because somebody was throwing away a hot tub. It was free. It was free for a reason, because it was rotten, hoses were leaking, pumps were not attached. But I thought it was really fun, you know, to have in my tiki bar a hot tub that is heated by my brew house. But that's for later.
95.9 hectoliters with water in there at a temperature of 14.5 Celsius degrees. Yeah, that's the steeping vessel. That's where the barley is now. So barley into steep. Okay, that's the next step.
You're not disturbing the process?
Huh? No. Yeah, it's filled up with barley, as I thought.
Can I start to make malt from fresh barley? Or should
Then you start to make
malt from fresh grains?
Fresh grains, yes.
Yeah,
I'm quite sure you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there are different methods of doing that, of course, but we're blowing in the grain with a big blower into this steeping vessel, and then it's together with the water, it's pumped over through the pipe over there into the germination drum, and then we uncouple it, and then it stays there for about 5 days, and it's turned twice a day, so that the roots doesn't get stuck into each other.
Yeah.
And after then, first sprouting and then kilning, and then we take it out. You see up there, it's just like a little pipe there.
Yeah.
Behind that pipe is an auger so that we can get it out. So it's turning it out and it's taking out it through this, I don't know what's called in English. And then we just, with the auger, to that blower into the silo. So during this transporting process, it is cleaned from. You can see that actually that's the roots from the kernels that are taken away, and it's very dry then, so it falls off very nice and smoothly.
Yeah.
And then up there we have some suctions just to clean it more, and then we're getting malt into that silo there. And from that silo we are filling up 25 kilo bags.
Yeah. Step by step.
Yeah. You keep the water and the grain together for about 4 or 5 hours.
Okay.
And during that period you are blowing in air at the same time. And that's quite important that you have a good oxygen level in the water all the time, so it doesn't get too... otherwise it could harm the germ in the grain.
Okay.
But I mean, that is because we are dealing with the big amounts. If you're doing it small scale, it's not that important.
Okay.
But then you take out the water and then you have this dry steeping period. That means that the water is going into the kernels. So it's more leveled out because it's...
where does that process happen?
That process
here in the well?
In the steeping vessel as well. So you have first the wet steeping, and then you have quite, for example, about 15 hours with dry steeping, and then it's just resting and the water is going into the kernels. And then you do a second wet steeping, then you add water again, but only for a couple of hours.
So wet steeping for a few hours?
For about 5 hours, then dry steeping for maybe 15 to, for say 14 to 17 hours. And after that, a new wet steeping for about 2-3 hours. And then you take it over to the germination drum. This wet steeping part is to fill up the kernels with water. You have to rise the water content from 12-13% up to 45%.
45%.
So that is what's happening in this step. And then the kernel wakes up, so it gets water and then it starts to...
It's activated.
Activated, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then during the germination process, you're starting with a little high temperature. Just
and where does that happen?
That happens over there.
Okay.
So in this big drum, it's two purposes. One is to do the sprouting, germination, and then it's also used for the kilning process. So we can, it's a dual system in that one. And we're starting with about to start the germination with 17 degrees, and then we go slowly down to 14 degrees.
Okay. So it's actually quite a low temperature.
So it's quite low temperature, yeah. But
somehow I always thought it was more.
We want to do it for a little longer days to get a good modification of the starch, you know.
Yeah.
But of course you can do it in a shorter time. But in our process it takes 5 days, and we got a lot of enzymes, and we have a lot of a good amount of starch for making the beer.
Yeah. But do the enzymes also develop during this process?
Yeah. That develops continuously parallel with the sprouting. I mean, the sprouting is actually that you waking up the kernels and you get the enzymes, they start to work, you know. And after that, when the germination process has been going far enough, then you just go over to the kilning process.
Yeah.
And the kilning are 2 steps. Withering is one, where you go in with a low temperature or heat, just to take out the water, and then you can go up with a higher temperature.
Because like I said, I'm afraid that if I'm trying to make malt at home, that it will turn sour. Because
But I mean, as long as the germination goes forward, and that you're sprouting for a couple of days, and then you start to dry it,
yeah,
then you don't need to bother about that it's getting sour or something like that.
okay, no,
So that's okay.
all right. Well, that's good to know.
But that's, of course, that is why during this sprouting you have to control the temperature, because it's developing a lot of heat, you know.
Yeah,
So if the heat rises too much, then it happen other things.
yeah,
In the malt.
malt maybe as well. If you're,
Yeah, well, I don't know what the quality problems will be, but one
No.
is maybe that it could get sour then.
yeah,
So try to keep it as cool as you can during
Yeah.
the sprouting
yeah.
process.
I think that's a very good tip.
But then for example that I'm talking about that you should start when you're drying it, that you should start with lower temperature. That is so that you don't get too much glassy kernels, you know. Because if you go in with too much heat, say that you put it in the oven
Yeah.
at 100 degrees, of course you will dry it up,
Yeah.
but you will get a lot of glassy kernels then, you know. So-
Glass.
Glassy kernels, yeah. That is hard kernels.
Okay.
That are very, very hard, you know.
And so for a base malt, like how long would you dry it?
I mean, you dry it as long as you come down to the right moisture level.
Okay, yeah.
So in this process, it takes about 24 hours. But
And
I mean,
then it has dried out to how much?
about 5%
Okay,
water content.
yeah. So again, if I was at home trying to make some malt, I would measure it by weight, and that would
Yeah.
maybe give me an idea.
Or I mean, you can use your senses. Is you can chew on it and you can see, so that you get a idea. I mean, it shouldn't be soft. It should be very dry.
Yeah.
A little bit harder.
Yeah, I have tasted quite some malt. Sometimes
So,
also when I was
you are a
hungry.
brewer, you know how malt
Yeah.
feels and
Yeah.
tastes and that.
Yeah.
But of course, you can also measure it up. I mean, you can weigh it and see. But if you don't have an instrument, it's hard to say if you are 5% or 6 or 7
Of course,
or 10. But that's not the point, you know.
No.
Yeah, the point is that you should dry it and then roast it for a little bit.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't, if you want to make a good malt for making beer, you shouldn't roast it with a too high temperature.
Okay,
Because the higher temperature you use, the more the enzymes will be damaged or
Yes.
less activity.
yeah.
So we are not heating with more than 85 degrees in this one.
Okay,
So that we,
that's something I can measure. 85.
yeah. So we start with 60 degrees just to get some water away, and
Yeah.
then we rise it to 85 degrees, just to make sure that it's so much that the enzymes are fit inside the malt.
Yeah. And then you continue the process if you want to make specialty malt.
If you want specialty malt, you can continue. You get in with a higher temperature. You get in with moist and heat at the same time, and then you get different kinds of malt.
Yeah. How many kinds of malts do you make?
I mean, it's possible to do everything from Pilsner malt up to chocolate malt in this one.
So the ready malt is in there, and it comes some. We're doing this one for, what was it? Rocket Brewing.
Which brewery?
Rocket.
Rockets.
Rocket.
Ah.
Down in Skåne, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm planning to use my kegerator for the steeping and the sprouting because I can set the temperature and it's nice and dark. If you want to see how I made this wonderful 5-minute build kegerator, check the video up here. So I did the first wet steeping, another dry steeping. Now it's going to be one more time wet steeping. And then it's time for sprouting. Okay, the steeping has been done. Some white dots are poking up. I think that's a good sign, but of course I don't really know. But let's see how much we gained in weight. So we started with 3 kilos and now we have 4.7. Perfect. Now the plan is to put them back into the kegerator. Yep. How much? How much? Okay, well, I don't know if this layer is too thick or not. I have no idea, but I'm going to put them back into the kegerator. Turn down the temperature a little bit more. What did he say? 14? 14 degrees. So this is after 4 days. And I just turned it once because, yeah, you see those roots, they really tangle together. You get this cluster. I did not add additional water. I sort of just set and forget. They have a lot of roots, but I don't see any heads poking up, so they are not done yet. It's so funny. Yeah, look at these. So just untangle them. Yes, I could have done this more often, but I was afraid that I would just dry them out. I still feel some moisture. I don't think I will add more water.